Welcome back, Defenders. I've got good news. Ukraine ignites blaze at Leningrad's biggest oil plant in a drone attack. On the night of September 13th, Ukrainian drone forces execute an attack on one of Russia's largest oil refineries, starting fires in the Leningrad Oblast. This is a big deal because this is Russia's second largest refinery. This is the Crimean refinery in Leningrad. It's about 810 kilometers from the border, and it produces over 20 million tons of oil products per year. The only refinery bigger is Omsk, but this one's farther away, 2,500 kilometers. Ukraine has struck it, but only one time in 2024. The third is Ryazan, and this has been struck 8 times. This is the Kostovo refinery in Nizhny Novgorod. This has been struck at least twice. And I'm guessing the Yaroslavl refinery will also be struck at some point in the near future. This is where the Crimean oil refinery is located on the map. It's just southeast of St. Petersburg. And we do have a video of the refinery on fire. I'll link it down below. And this is a nice picture. It created this halo effect, the shimmering fire with the distillation tower. People have been turning it into a meme because it's impressive to look at. And Ukraine also struck another refinery last night. Drone strike reported at Russian oil refinery 1,400 kilometers from Ukraine. This one is located in Bashkortostan. Once again, Ukraine is launching their own drones deep into Russia. I'm assuming Russia is shooting some of them down, but these drones are hitting their targets. This is the refinery on fire. It doesn't look very extensive, but Ukraine can always strike it again tomorrow. And we do have the moment of impact caught on camera. The Russians released this. I'll link it down below if you want to see a Ukrainian drone slamming into a Russian oil refinery. Ukraine quietly hits key Russian fuel node twice in 1 week. New footage confirms a repeat strike on the fuel pumping station linking Russia's Ryazan oil refinery and the city of Moscow. That's interesting. This is the video. I'll link it down below, but that is you can see it right here. That is a Ukrainian drone slamming into a Russian oil pumping station. Russia has dozens of these stretching across their territory. There's no way they can net or protect all of them, so Ukraine only has to knock out one, and the oil and gas stops flowing through these pipelines. This is where this pumping station is located. Once again, Ukraine is trying to cut off the supply of oil and gasoline, to the city of Moscow from the Ryazan refinery. I don't think this is a coincidence. I think the Ukrainians are deliberately trying to trigger gasoline shortages in the capital city to affect as many Russians as possible. Ukrainian drones also shut down Russia's key Baltic oil terminal for the first time. Ukrainian Secret Service or Security Service drones struck Russia's Primorsk oil port on the 12th, damaging 2 Shadow Fleet tankers and forcing the first ever suspension of operations at the Baltic Sea terminal. This terminal exports $100 million worth of oil products daily, and it's now offline. This is what the terminal looks like. These huge tankers dock, and then maybe it takes like a full day to actually fill up the tanker. But Ukraine struck these sensitive, I don't know what they're called, like piers, where the ships dock. The ships that were damaged was the, let's see here, the Kusto and Kayun. These are 2 ships that belong to Russia's Shadow Fleet. They have a capacity of 700,000 barrels each. And they're damaged. Here's a recap of the 17 strikes on 12 Russian oil refineries over the last 45 days. I don't know politically what changed on August 1st, but starting August 1st, this is a plan. This is a strategy. August 2nd, the 7th, the 10th, the 14th, the 15th, going all the way to present day. I'm not sure if the most recent are included. Here's a map showing the locations of all these strikes. And in total, Ukraine has targeted 45% of Russia's oil refining capacity. Some of these facilities are still either fully operational, they've repaired, or they're partially offline. So the best estimates is that about 25 to 30% of Russia's oil refining capacity has been knocked offline. And I don't know why Ukraine would stop this. This is the winning strategy. So the most effective sanctions are Ukrainian sanctions, kinetic sanctions. Kyiv says the goal is to cut fuel for Russia's military and cash for the Kremlin. Western allies are fearing a global price shock. Before 2022, most Baltic flows went to Europe. Now they go to India and China. Prior to 2022, this was easy. This was easy money for the Russians. All they had to do was get the oil out of the Arctic Circle, refine it somewhere, put it on ships, and then sell it to France, sell it to the UK, sell it to Germany, whoever. It's a short trip, but because Russia declared war on all of their best customers, all of their port infrastructure, all of their pipelines still go to the Baltic Sea, so they still have to load up these ships and either sail north through the Arctic Ocean to go to China, or sail around the tip of Africa to try and deliver to India. But 50% of Russia's oil and refined oil product exports, they're still coming out of St. Petersburg. They can't build the infrastructure to, have it directly go to India or China yet. They want to do that with the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline, but that's going to take years to build if China ever gets around to financing it. Here's a speech from President Zelensky. I want to read what he's saying. I think that he's fully on board with these strikes on refineries, and he knows what he's doing. The Russian war machine will only stop when it runs out of fuel, and Putin will begin to stop it himself when he truly feels that the resources for war are running out. That is why it is so important to have strong responses to every issue, every challenge. Russia must come to believe that America, Europe, and the West as a whole will not allow Russia to wage war. It cannot be achieved through persuasion of Russia alone, through dialogue alone. There must be truly strong pressure so that instead of aiming to occupy Ukraine or any other country, Putin's goal will be to preserve his economy, his system, to preserve what is his, that for the sake of which he has existed all of these years. This is really just about Putin and the Russians wanting more. They already have all the money they could ever want or need, pillaging the resources of Russia's vast territory, but they wanted more. They were greedy. So if Putin and his oligarchs feel like they're about to lose everything, they will stop this war. This is what the elite of Moscow are facing. Russian gas stations are shutting down across 10 regions, but Moscow blames vacation season, not Ukrainian drones. So according to Russia, every drone that enters their territory is shot down. It's just falling debris causing light fires. But they're not reporting to their people about 25% of their refining capacity being offline. The official government answer for why gas stations don't have gas is holiday travel. Yeah, I don't think that's going to work very long. So Ukraine has to keep up the pressure. Now is the time. Kyiv's special ops execute attack on a segment of Russian rail routes, seeking to maximize the effectiveness of its hits. Ukraine disrupted 2 separate railway routes to compound logistics problems for the Kremlin. These are fuel cars, trying to move Russia's oil and gas, and Ukraine did something to them. Let me share this video. Russia could stop the war, and then their trains would stop derailing. Ukrainian drone hits chemical plants in Russia's Perm-Krai, 1,800 kilometers from the border. Once again, a Ukrainian drone, and I'm guessing this chemical plant makes explosives for the Russian military. Ukraine also, once again, got another air defense system. This is a Buk M3, and this was in the Zaporizhia region. Ukraine is basically blowing up an anti-air system every couple days. So I imagine there's a shortage. And the Russians reportedly have reached out to Turkey to buy back S-400 air defense systems they sold to Turkey in 2019. That's pretty pathetic. It's pretty desperate. I hope Turkey doesn't sell these systems back to Russia, but Turkey just does whatever they want. Here we are. This is the results. This is the real war map. 66% of Russians want peace talks as support for Ukraine war hits a record low. This is a poll done in Russia. In August of 2025, only 27% of Russians supported continuing the war in Ukraine, while a record high of 66 are backing peace talks. This is polling done by the Levada Center, and you have to be careful speaking to people on the telephone in Russia. You don't want to be arrested or purged. But for Russians willing to speak up, answer honestly, it's as high as 66%. 58% of respondents say the war has affected them or their families. Among those strongly affected, common issues include the death of relatives or friends, family members participating in combat, injuries and disabilities, emotional distress, and of course, economic hardship. Why the sudden spike? And it's the economy. People economically in Russia are worse off today than they were 3.5 years ago. But Putin doesn't want to stop Ukraine peace talks on pause, according to the Kremlin. They don't want to end the war. They want to escalate. So that is what these drone violations of NATO territory are all about. A deliberate expansion of the war by Russia. Romania scrambles jets after Russian drone enters NATO airspace for the second time this week. There was no consequences to drones entering Poland 3 or 4 days ago, so why not keep doing it? The Russians are having fun, so they sent drones into Romania, and they sent drones into Poland again. Poland scrambles jets and closes the Lublin airport in reaction to new Russian drone threat. Here is Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Due to the threat posed by Russian drones operating over Ukraine near the border with Poland, preventative operations of aviation, Polish and Allied, have begun in our airspace. Ground-based air defense systems have reached the highest state of readiness. I know people are frustrated, but NATO is doing something. Sending additional military aid and help to Ukraine is NATO's response for Russia's provocations. But this is fun. This is Sternenko. He commented on the Polish Prime Minister's post saying, "We can help you. We are happy to collaborate." And that is where these new Stinger drones are coming in. I don't know exactly what they're being called, but they cost about $1,000 to $2,000, and the concept has been proven. These Stinger drones are good at shooting down Russian Shahed drones. Russia, I don't know what they're going to do. Why would they continue spending $20,000 to $30,000 on Shahed drones when they can be countered with tech costing $1,000 or $2,000? This is a new technology invented by Ukraine out of necessity in the last couple months, and we now have European officials coming to Ukraine to see the technology and maybe put in some purchase orders so they can defend NATO airspace. Perhaps that is Russia's objective, to divert resources away from Ukrainian airspace, but I think the opposite is occurring. European countries are pouring money into these shops to get them what they need to produce as many of these as they can. So I imagine right now there are 3D printing machines going 24/7, pumping out hundreds, if not thousands of these a day across Ukraine, and we'll see how it plays out. Let me share this video with you real quick. This is one of these Stinger drones. When the Shaheds launch, it's always at night, so we don't have a good video. But because Ukraine has invented this new technology, these are Russian surveillance drones that just hover in the sky at all times. And Ukraine now has a counter for them. A cheap and ineffective one relative, but yes, this is now blinding the Russians on the front lines if Ukraine has cheap Stinger drones that they can quick send up to knock these surveillance drones out of the skies. Russia is currently being blinded on the front lines. Ukraine stops Russia's offensive in the Sumy Oblast, according to President Zelensky. Ukraine controls the front, but the situation is not that simple. Zelensky said that Russia's main advantage is manpower. There's 700,000 Russians in the occupied territories, and insists that Russia is not making major gains in eastern Ukraine despite heavy assaults and large troop deployments. If you've been watching my videos, I haven't done a map update in weeks. Nothing of significance is changing. Russia is not making progress on the battlefield. Pokrovsk was surrounded and about to fall a year ago. Konstantinivka was surrounded and about to fall a year ago. Liman, where is Liman? Was, being pressured and about to fall a year ago. Kupiansk was being pressured and about to fall a year ago. And of course, Russia's big summer offensive was Sumy. This was alarming back in June, and I said if Russia can make it to this bend in the highway, they would be within artillery and FPV range of the city of Sumy. But they didn't make it. They just took horrendous casualties, and they got about 5 kilometers deep. This is insane that Russia continues doing the exact same thing, expecting a different result. And every day, guys, I don't share all of these clips, but the Russian military is very goofy. They have serious supply shortages of everything, and they just have to make do with materials they can steal from the occupied territories. So these are Russian Marines showing the amphibious assaults craft that they had to make themselves to cross a river.
Ну давай. Будем скидывать потихонечку. Сейчас это самое главное, чтобы мне еще не пиздануться. Оба-на. Вот это низ у нас на нашей стороне.
Вот это низ, да?
Да. Так, ну вот, короче, он на воде. Вот на воде. Сейчас будет спускаться туда тувинец. Смотри, только аккуратнее. Короче, ну вот. Заебись.
The Russians filmed and posted this video because they're proud of themselves. They considered this a win, that they were able to take some empty water bottles and a pallet and make some kind of landing craft to get across the river. This is supposed to be the second most powerful military in the world. Okay, quick political update. It's stupid as usual because it involves Trump. Trump says he'll sanction Moscow if all of NATO allies stop buying Russian oil. Once again, a big wall of text, bunch of stupid stuff. Trump couldn't help himself and he had to reiterate that this is Biden and Zelensky's war, not Putin or Russia's. The entire fault of this war is Biden and Zelensky. And he's saying now that if all NATO members stop buying Russian oil and gas and also place sanctions that he wants, then he'll be willing to place sanctions on Russia. But only if all of NATO does what he wants first. Can you see the problem here? Why would Trump, as a condition, say that everyone in NATO has to do something before he's willing to do it? And he knows that's never going to happen. He didn't even say the EU has to do all of these sanctions and stop buying Russian oil. He said every NATO member. So this means Viktor Orban, Fico of Slovakia, and Erdogan of Turkey, every NATO member, has to stop buying Russian oil and gas and first place sanctions that he wants on Russia, and then he'll do it. This is stupid. Trump doubts his ability to influence Putin, so he shifts responsibility onto Europe. Trump is just looking for someone to blame because he's incompetent and he can't do anything. He doesn't want to put pressure on the Russians. He tried blaming Ukraine and putting pressure on Ukraine to surrender. But Ukraine's not going to surrender. They're going to continue fighting. So this is just a way for Trump to shift the blame and once again do nothing. If Trump really wanted to sanction Putin, he could. It would be no problem. Congress would go for any sanction he wanted. So anytime Trump puts a condition on sanctions, it's just another piece of evidence that he is protecting Putin from sanctions and helping Russia win this war. If Russia can somehow manage to win this war, Trump expects to be paid back by Putin at some point in the future. Trump right now, wasting 9 months, is just trying to gain Putin's favor so that he and his kids can enrich themselves with deals with the Russians at some point in the future. It's a distraction. It's all meaningless. All right, let's get to the good news. And we crushed Konstantin's fundraiser. I mentioned Konstantin is raising $120,000 to build some diggers for the Ukrainian military. And I mentioned his story in my last video, and it was, another skyrocket moment, guys. This is what Konstantin wanted to say for everyone who donated. I want to give a big shout out to Jake Bro for helping me with a fundraiser, and Toonie Tuesday. Before that, combined pulled out my failing fundraiser from a hellhole, and we're now at close to the full amount. It's almost complete. The down payment for the machines has already been placed. I'll put the link down below. It's currently at 114 out of 120. I know that the PayPal website causes problems for people in other countries and around the world. If it's not working, don't worry about it. I still appreciate you guys. Thank you so much to everyone who supports Ukraine in any way. You don't have to donate money. Just by being here and staying informed, staying engaged, you're incredible, especially after 3.5 years. Thank you so much to each and every one of you watching this video right now. Final video I want to share with you is from friend of the channel, Zarina Zabriskie. She risks her life every day by remaining in the city of Kherson to document Russia's human safari. Kherson is not a city that really any Western journalists are willing to visit because it's so dangerous, but Zarina lives there full time, documenting and getting her stories out. This is what the downtown of Kherson currently looks like now that the city has been almost completely depopulated.
Walking downtown Kherson, it looks more like Pripyat, city by Chernobyl nuclear power station, abandoned. The nature is taking over. There's grass growing through the cobblestones. This part of the city almost reminds me of New Orleans for some reason. That is, if New Orleans was first occupied and then shelled for years by Russia.
Kherson eventually will bounce back. Continue supporting Ukraine, Russia will be defeated. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.